So today the screen is all blue because we're looking at a really big battery for a Xiamo x11. We usually don't work with these types of scooters, but it's still winter in Sweden, it's snowing today, so maybe we will give it a try. And this is not one of those monstrous scooters that has 5,600 watt. This is a more reasonable 3,200 watt. It still has a 72 watt battery, and this one is supposed to be with LG cells. They also have an option with Chinese domestic cells, but then it's only 26 ampere hour. This one is 32, most likely with LG MH1. And no water damage on this scooter, because that is something I've seen on almost every of this pack. And this one has a really good heat shrink tubing that is more like rubber. Yeah, if it's yellow, it's okay to cut, unless you're using your Japanese tools. They might be as sharp, so they can cut through the plastic. So I will be using my more generic worn stuff. Another reason we don't work with this is because of the size. We usually don't get in the whole scooter, and there is just no room to make any kind of errors. It needs to be exactly this size or it won't fit. Okay, this seems to be using Chinese hexagon holders and looks to be genuine LG cells. Yeah, they don't look like any copies. So, really simple design. Let's see if our European version holders can be the same size. This one are from Cart, which we usually use. Let's see if they are bigger or smaller. It actually seems to be a little bit smaller, so I think we can use them, so we don't need to take out all the cells individually. And we also might get 1 or 2 more millimeters. And the customer said we should reuse his original BMS, but we were thinking of putting a dolly in here, a 100 amp BMS, always included when we build batteries, so we can have a good warranty on it. I do remember seeing BQV, but I don't recall who they are. I will try scanning that code, but it seems to be a pretty generic OK BMS, similar to that of Westway. Now this has an empty charging socket here, but it does have charging socket 2, and if you're not charging it super fast, you probably don't need both. The charger seems to be 1.5 ampere hours. Yeah, he's not fast charging. Jesus, that must take like 24 hours. And the original one is for 60 amps, so BMS date 2020. Let's also check the cells voltages to see if anything is off, because if we know LG cells, they're definitely not for high discharge, and we've seen a lot of them on lower discharge, 750 watts in 5P, have terrible imbalance after around 3 years. So they're not really a good cell, according to us. So what did I tell you? This gap is because there is a gap over here that's not connected, so that should be around twice as much. But as you can see, some are 4.1 and some are 3.5. 3.9. Most seems to be about pretty the same, but 3 different cell groups have begun to die. And we can check the data on the LG cells, but they are not that old since the BMS was manufactured in 2020. They are of the newer version without the LG name on it, so there is no official date code decipher out there yet, at least not something I could find in English, Swedish, or Chinese. So if you know how to decode the date code from this, since we don't really use LG, I will not put more effort into that, but they're obviously after 2022. I don't recall exactly which year they switched to the warning labels, but they are pretty new and they shouldn't be dying already. It could be from the high discharge, but on 750 watts 5P, that is ridiculously low. That's just a few amps per cell. So even though LG is maybe good at making televisions, they are terrible at making batteries. The only cell that are decent is MG1, and even that is far worse than any Sanyo or Samsung or even Bach cells when it comes to aging. At least from the test I do when we get in used cells. They're probably very good when they're new, but they only last 3 years, and I believe many manufacturers really likes that quality in their battery, since then the customer need to buy a new one and they can still use brand cells. We will offer him a quote with other cells. We would like to use higher current cells, but I think we might go with Sanyo GA since they can handle 10 amps.